morning. It's a beautiful day in New York City. We're kind of blessed with nice weather. They say we may get snow, but who knows? Maybe, maybe not. It's kind of like the news. I was up rather early this morning, and I'm wondering after I read the news, it's the same all the time. Another mass murder. We're wondering about the debt ceiling. We're wondering if Texans are going renewable for the wrong reasons, and really, who cares as long as they go renewables? And we just keep wondering about the same old stuff going around in circles. It's interesting, but in a sad, sad way. Politicians, if they were interested in change, they'd look at the 14th Amendment. There's 4 sections to it. 1 guarantees the right to vote. Mustn't disenfranchise anyone. So if we're having problems, folks, with the right to vote, and we're having folks who are disenfranchised and can't vote, well, under the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, sections 1 and 2, they ought to have the vote. It's a given. There's no reason that any of these state laws should really hold up under a Supreme Court that was not politicized. No siree. Same thing with a Congress that's gridlocked and allows anyone, even insurrectionists, to stay in Congress. When it says, point blank, 14th Amendment, Section 3, if you've gone against the Constitution, like those in the insurrection of January 6th, 2021, well, if you're a politician, you should never be allowed back in politics. If you're an attorney, you should be disbarred. If you're a policeman or in the military, you got to be out because you swore an oath to that Constitution. I think about 146 folks in the House of Representatives would be gone by now if we actually followed the Constitution. Those folks don't belong there. They're not for you or me. Same thing with a debt limit. That was covered in the Constitution. The government must pay its bills. That's a fact. It's a law. It says so in the Constitution. So if Congress wants to play games on paying debt, well, then the president will just have to find a way to pay those debts. It was done during the Civil War. Right after the Civil War, the 14th Amendment came into being so that everyone would be paid, North and South, all debts, all suppliers. Now I know, after reading the papers this morning, why there is a popular magazine called The Week. You want to know what's happening in a nutshell? You read The Week. You don't have to read the papers. Do I need anyone to tell me that there are more guns in America than there are Americans? No. Do I need anyone to tell me that people who are mentally disturbed have guns, and when they have guns, they shoot them? They just don't commit suicide. They commit homicide. And if you've got bigger guns with larger magazines for bullets, you just shoot them. And you shoot a lot of people at once. Is it a tragedy? You bet. Are we forgetting it's a tragedy? We might be when we say we're upholding the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Really, all the Second Amendment said is we need a well-armed militia. Well, we got a well-armed militia. We got the National Guard, We got the military. Private citizens don't need to have guns unless they want to go hunting once in a while, and nobody hunts with an assault rifle and a magazine that shoots 30 rounds. What in the world would you have left of that poor deer? And with deer going for $15 a pound and cattle fetching only 8, it would seem to me you wouldn't want to squander a deer. Why would you want to squander a human being? A human being has the potential to earn a lot of income in their lifetime, or to be a caregiver, or anything a human being has worth. As they say, a price above rubies. So, who wants to read the news unless I'm reading about things that are interesting, like science? You want to have apple trees and pear trees, and you need pollinators, and you want to go organic, and you want to have fruit? Well, they've got aphids. Aphids evidently succumb to wasps. You put a couple of wasps in the field, the larvae, just before they're about to be born, and what do you have? You get rid of the aphids, and you got fruit trees. Sure, it's maybe 60% effective, not as effective as pesticides, but then again, you can claim you're organic and you haven't used those pesticides and you're not destroying your land. That, to me, is a better way to go. They're now looking at Roman concrete. It only lasted a couple of millennia, not like our concrete that produces CO2 in the air. The Romans, when they built the Parthenon, they did it with hot limestone. And yeah, it expands, but it also fills in itself. And that's why the concrete is self-repairing. They use clumps of limestone. We could do the same thing. We could duplicate what they did in Roman times and decrease our CO2 emissions. And in Texas, they found out that, boy, when you put in wind farms on your farms, you not only get the $8 a pound, the $15 a pound, but you get hundreds of dollars per acre, or thousands per acre. It pays. Sure, we might have struck oil there the turn of the last century, but this is a clean energy way to go. And I don't care what they call it, and whether or not they think it's climate change or not that's driving them, but the bucks are driving them, and that's what's important. You don't have to have good intentions and do good. You just need to do good. And if doing good means they make money off of wind farms, God bless, let them do it, and so should everyone else. I understand that there are actually wind profiles for apartment buildings, and I think that would be a neat idea to have right here in the United States, in New York City. So there's a lot we can do with science. If you're not going to solve the problems, truthfully, I'd rather not read about it. I'd rather go to science and see what's happening there. Interestingly enough, in Israel, everyone's worried about the new far-right government. Even the scientists are worried. Well, you know what? In Israel, if the scientists get worried, the government will worry. Israel started out in 1948 as an agrarian economy. Then they moved on. They capitalized on diamond cutting, and that became significant to their economy. Now, they're called the startup nation. and everyone flocks to Israel for the TECHNION and for all of the new technologies that are being developed, whether it's in the sciences, weapons, artificial intelligence, you name it, it's happening in Israel. So if those scientists start marching, guess what? That far-right government is not going to move so far right because they can't afford a brain drain. The brains are what bring people to Israel. So I think there's not really anything to be worried about. Not here, not there, except for the fact of doing nothing. Doing nothing means we go backwards. Who wants to go backwards? We need to keep moving forward. One thing inflation has done, it's hurt the middle and poorer classes. And that's another thing that I thought was rather amusing. All of a sudden, people in NYCHA housing, which is New York subsidized housing for the poor, people aren't paying their rent. And because of that, they're saying they can't do repairs. Well, I remember when I was still in business, they weren't doing repairs then either. And this is over 10 years ago. I know I used to bid NYCHA housing. So it's like, give me a break, folks. Now you can't do repairs because the people are poor and not making the income they made before, or maybe out of work. You didn't do it before. And there are ways that you could actually cut down on outside repair people. You could train people in NYCHA housing to do minimal repairs. They could change lights. They could change door locks. They could change flooring. They can do the painting. And you pay them a little extra. And you've got a building staff built in to those housing projects. And you don't kick the people out. You let them live there and have ownership of the project. There's a lot that can be done. My feeling about Congress, if they don't work to do something constructive, they should all be out. There's no reason not to move forward. We've got money flowing to the states. People need work. And I'm not worried about inflation. They're not even worried about inflation over in Europe. They're worried about unemployment. And that's where we should be concentrating. Who's working, who isn't, and what do we have to do to make people more productive? There's a lot we can do. We're just not looking in the right places. And as far as I'm concerned, if the news keeps repeating itself like a bad sandwich, I may go to looking at it once a week, and even then, looking specifically to see what's being done. I don't have patience for doing nothing. I remember when I went to Ford Motor Company for my first job, and I was there a couple of days, and they didn't give me anything to do. I was sitting in the office, and I said to them, "Do you really want me to work here?" And they were paying me a good salary, and I was going to bring my kids there in a couple of weeks. I said, "No hard feelings. I'll go home." They gave me work, and they let me run free to get everything they needed accomplished and then some. I became their expert in paint. Did I know anything about paint before? No. Did I know afterwards? You bet. And they did too. So my feeling is those folks in Congress are earning a living. They're earning a darn good living. Let's see what they're worth by what they pass. not by what they stop doing. So, God bless you all. See you in a couple of days or next week. But that's the news as I see it now. And it's only bright if you solve the problems. You just don't keep regurgitating them over and over and over again. People count. All people count. Thank you.